Hello beautiful, this is Helen Lore, and today we are going to draw a very simple, very cliche, but beautiful rose. So let's draw a rose. When it comes to drawing roses, I like to start by sketching out the inside of the rose and working my way out to the larger petals that surround it. In the past, when I've drawn roses, they are normally as a hair decoration, or they've been trimmed so they don't have any leaves on them. But the reference photo that I was looking at had a couple leaves poking out from underneath the rose, and I thought that actually looked pretty cute. Made sense to do something a little different than what I usually do to try to make this tutorial a little more inclusive, have a little more information in it. Step one is just trying to sketch out where everything's supposed to be. We're probably going to paint over everything later. In fact, I know we're going to paint over everything else later. So it's not a big deal if we get everything absolutely right at this stage. This is a good spot to stop. Now I've got to enlarge my canvas a little bit because the rose I ended up drawing turned out to be a lot bigger than I was expecting. Which is cool. It's nice to draw things nice and big and detailed. And now we're on to step 2. Step 2 is we're going to ink it. So we need to lower the opacity on that layer there, create ourselves a new one, pick a darker color, and we're going to draw what we just did. We're just going to do it again, a little neater and cleaner. That way we have less mess when we go to color everything in. The second step should go a lot faster than the first one did because we've already drawn everything that we're drawing now. That's what the sketch was. And this is just making it a little neater, a little cleaner. That way when we go to color everything, it's not going to be a big mess. And we're going to be painting over most of this line art still in the end, so don't get too hung up in making sure everything's all perfect. You want it to be mostly good, but if there's a little scratch there, a little scratch here, then it's alright. It's going to be good. So step 2 is done, which means we can move on to step 3. Three is an interesting one. We get to add color. Now this rose, I picked this really peachy pink color because I'm not really looking for a really blood red dramatic Valentine style rose. And I'm not really going for like a wedding rose or like some kind of friendship gift rose. So it's not going to be a real pale pink and it's not a real pale yellow. The color of the leaves is a similar muted green to go with the muted pink. So picking a darker color, this is a dark red. I think this is actually the red that I have been lining with. We are gonna shade the inside of the rose essentially, because that is the darkest spot of the rose, and it's gonna add the illusion of depth and make it come alive. I'm gonna say that a lot because roses, well, they're dead. You know, by the time you put them in a bouquet, they're dead. But they were originally a living thing, and they should look like they're alive. Unless you're drawing a dead rose, and it's not going to look like it's alive at all, because it is dead. Like, maybe it's a gothic rose from the Munsters or the Addams Family. Just using the marker tool to layer on some more shadow, and I like to use the watercolor tool to blend it a little bit, make it fuzzy so it's not completely out of bounds. And this here is when I discovered that I had indeed messed up. If this was a human, this is the equivalent of putting the head attached to the shoulder. I had the bottom part of the rose a little too big for the actual blossom, so I have to make the inside of the blossom bigger, because it was easier for me to repaint the inside of the blossom than it is to shrink that little cup thing. It was just easier. I'm lazy. I always pick the easiest option. So you can tell that I'm just literally just painted over it. And it looks okay. It's gonna need a little bit more polish, but we're getting there. See, it's okay to make mistakes, because then you end up with a bit that kind of looks pretty nice. Looks a little cool. Step 5. This is where we start adding some highlight. But first, I decided that I didn't really like the color of the rose too much once I started shading it with that really reddish brown color. So I'm going to use the lasso tool to select it, go to the hue and saturation menu and mess around with the color a little bit, make it a little darker, make it this a little redder. It's now a really rich pink. I like it. Yes. So picking that base rose color, we're going to make ourselves a brand new layer, and we're going to set it with the luminosity layer mode. This is exciting stuff. I'm using the watercolor brush, and I'm just shading around the outside of the rose, because the outside is where there's going to be a lot more light hitting the rose. And the edges of all the petals, that way they stand out a bit, and they're kind of a little bit shiny in real life. If you look at photos of roses around the edge, I think they typically flare out a little bit, curl over a little, and it's really pretty. Doing some shading on the leaves, you just create that little center line, and you just go dip, 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 straight with the line slanted slightly towards the tip. So some more shading, trying to shade around towards the inside of the rose, and just adding some more depth. So we're done with step 5, so we're going to start on step 6. I like this one. So you're going to hold down the control key and press the layer with the rose on it. And you're going to create a new one, set the layer mode to luminosity, use the airbrush pen on fuzzy-tastic setting, and work your way from the top to the bottom. Then we do that again with black, from the bottom to the top, lower the opacity, and this adds depth. It looks awesome now, doesn't it? And now we're just painting over pretty much what we just did with the airbrush tool, because if you just leave the airbrush like that, then it's a little obvious that you use the airbrush tool sometimes, and people tend to view that as cheating or lazy work. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with it, but I still see that there's more detail I can add, so I'm doing that. Refining the edges of the rose petals a little bit, trying to make them stand out more, making them a little brighter, adding some more highlight, adding a little bit more shadow. This is the penultimate step, and it is a pretty handy one. We're gonna see add a little bit more to the leaves. This is the fun part. This step and the last step are the really fun part. And we've enlarged our canvas. You won't have to do this. This is just so I can have a nice little reference sheet by the end of this. I'm gonna enlarge that rose because I like the last step to be appropriately awesome looking. It's big, it stands out to you. And this is where we get to play with some color settings. So we're gonna merge that group layer, create ourselves a new group, put that layer in it. You don't have to do that, I'm just doing that for my sake. We're gonna clean up the edges a little bit. That's what the eraser tool's for. Fix things up, make them look a little pretty. We're gonna use the eraser tool to clean up the edges of the leaves too, to make them a little neater. And then making little sharp motions with the ink pen to give it a little jagged edge, because rose leaves are kind of jagged looking. They have that look to them. Swoopy things, or a half moon, I suppose. So this is, just adding all the little details, fixing it up a little bit. Thorns here, and there's different ways of how to draw rose thorns. This is just one of them. I'm not even sure it's the best way to do a rose thorn, but it's the way I decided to do it for this video. I recommend looking up some reference photos yourself, studying them, seeing what they look like. You don't have to add thorns to a rose. I just thought, if I was going to be adding little leaves, I could add some little thorns, kind of complete the illusion. Why not? Of course, the counter to that argument is, but why? Favorite's the eraser tool though. Alright, so we're going to create a new layer, set it to overlay, pick a nice dark red, and work from the bottom, and lower the opacity a bit because that was a little strong. A little light lilac towards the top, and this gives it a really pretty jewel tone. It starts adding to the magic. We're going to add a little yellow on the leaves. These are all on their individual layers, that way you can play with the opacity. much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a comment, like this video, subscribe. I'm going to be making more processes, more speed paint, and some more tutorials coming soon, hopefully. Thank you so much.